On the morning of September 11, 2001, New York City was beginning what seemed like an ordinary day, but at 8:46 a.m., that ordinary morning was shattered when American Airlines Flight 11 crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Just 17 minutes later, before people could fully understand what had happened, United Airlines Flight 175 slammed into the South Tower. As shock spread across the country, America still did not fully grasp that it was under a coordinated attack. Soon, officials discovered that American Airlines Flight 77 was heading rapidly toward Washington, D.C. Within moments, the plane crashed into the Pentagon. By around 9:30 a.m., American news channels realized the horror was not over. Another hijacked aircraft was still in the sky, United Airlines Flight 93, the fourth and final plane. It was believed to be heading toward the White House, the residence of the American president. In total, 4 American passenger planes were hijacked that morning. Thousands of people lost their lives, and more than 25,000 were injured. The events of that day would become one of the deadliest terrorist attacks in modern history. But who was behind it? How was such a devastating plan carried out? And what really happened to the final flight? More importantly, how did these attacks change the lives of ordinary people across the world? In this video, we will break down every key moment of the attack, step by step.
Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack.
It was the morning of September 11, 2001. American Airlines Flight 11 took off from Boston's Logan International Airport, bound for Los Angeles. On board were 92 people, 11 crew members, and 81 passengers. About 15 minutes after takeoff, the unimaginable happened. Hidden among the passengers were 5 hijackers. They forced their way into the cockpit, overpowered the pilot and co-pilot, and seized control of the aircraft. Instead of heading west toward Los Angeles, the plane was turned south toward New York City. At 8:46 a.m., the hijackers crashed Flight 11 into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. At that very moment, U.S. President George W. Bush was on his way to visit an elementary school in Florida. When White House Chief of Staff Andrew Card informed him that a plane had struck the World Trade Center, the news was so shocking that, at first, it was hard to fully comprehend what had happened. But only 17 minutes later, the situation became even more terrifying. United Airlines Flight 175 had also been hijacked, again by a group of 5 hijackers. After taking control of the aircraft, they turned it toward New York City. Then, at 9:03 a.m., Flight 175 slammed into the South Tower of the World Trade Center. At that moment, America realized this was no accident. The country was under attack. A few minutes after the second crash, more alarming news began to emerge. 2 more planes had been hijacked. One of them was American Airlines Flight 77, which had taken off from Washington Dulles International Airport and was bound for Los Angeles. On board were 5 hijackers. The other was United Airlines Flight 93, flying from Newark, New Jersey to San Francisco, California. This flight had 4 hijackers. Both aircraft were turned away from their original routes and redirected toward Washington, D.C. Just outside the city stands the Pentagon, the headquarters of the United States Department of Defense. The hijackers turned Flight 77 toward the building. At 9:37 a.m., the plane slammed into the Pentagon. By this point, after the third crash, the entire United States airspace was shut down. Meanwhile, in New York, the South Tower of the World Trade Center was engulfed in flames. Then, at 9:59 a.m., less than an hour after being struck, the entire South Tower collapsed. As smoke and panic spread across the country, fear of the 4th hijacked plane began to grow. United Airlines Flight 93 was still in the air. No one knew where the hijackers intended to strike next. Many feared that the target could be either the White House or the U.S. Capitol, 2 of the most powerful symbols of American government. On the other hand, some of the people on board this aircraft turned on their phones after the plane was hijacked. They began receiving calls from family members who told them what was actually happening across America. 3 planes had already crashed. The World Trade Center had been attacked, and the towers had collapsed. Soon, the passengers on this plane realized what was happening. Their aircraft had also been hijacked, and like the other hijacked planes, theirs could also be used in a deadly crash. At that moment, the passengers showed extraordinary courage. The people on board United Airlines Flight 93 decided to fight back against the hijackers. Chaos erupted inside the plane as the passengers struggled to regain control. In the end, the aircraft crashed into an empty field. At 10:28 a.m., the North Tower of the World Trade Center also collapsed. By the time this terrifying morning turned into afternoon, America had begun to understand the scale of the tragedy. More than 3,000 people were killed in the attacks, and over 6,000 were injured. Many died at the Pentagon, many died in the World Trade Center, and many others were killed aboard the hijacked planes. In the immediate aftermath, suspicion quickly fell on Osama bin Laden and the terrorist group al-Qaeda. However, a few days after the 9/11 attacks, Osama bin Laden released a statement denying any involvement. But in 2004, about 3 years after the attacks, during the US presidential election period, a videotape was released in which Osama bin Laden openly claimed responsibility. In that recording, he said that al-Qaeda had several motivations for carrying out the attacks. He accused the United States of interfering in the Middle East, supporting Israel, backing actions in Lebanon against Muslims, supporting Russia in Chechnya, imposing sanctions on Iraq, maintaining close ties with Saudi Arabia, and stationing American troops there. According to him, these were the reasons behind the attack. His main message was that al-Qaeda wanted to punish America for what it saw as actions against Muslims. The September 11th attacks report identified Khalid Sheikh Mohammed as the principal architect of the attacks. He had also been linked to the earlier 1993 World Trade Center bombing. He, along with 4 other accused men, was later held at Guantanamo Bay detention camp. As for Osama bin Laden, he was finally killed in May 2011. But perhaps the most important question is not only who planned the attacks, it is what these attacks did to the lives of ordinary people, and not just ordinary Americans, ordinary people across the world. It is hard to measure how deeply these attacks changed everyday life. Just 6 weeks after 9/11, the USA Patriot Act was passed by the United States Congress. This law dramatically expanded the powers of the US government. It gave authorities broader surveillance powers, allowing them to monitor communications, collect records, and investigate people more aggressively in the name of national security. Critics argued that the law also weakened important judicial safeguards. Many believed the government used the fear of terrorism to justify expanding its power, and some warned that it could be used to silence dissent. After 9/11, another major change came in airport security. Before 2001, airport security in many parts of the world was far less strict than it is today. The attacks changed that forever. Security checks became tighter, screening became more intensive, and air travel across the world was transformed. Osama bin Laden had claimed that one of his reasons for targeting America was US involvement in the Middle East. But after 9/11, American involvement in that region only deepened. Within weeks of the attacks, the United States launched an invasion of Afghanistan to destroy al-Qaeda and remove the Taliban from power. And in many ways, that story is still unfolding today. The United States remained in Afghanistan for nearly 20 years. Although Osama bin Laden was eventually killed, the war cost trillions of dollars, much of it paid by American taxpayers. Thousands of American soldiers lost their lives, and countless civilians were killed in the wars that followed. The United States also invaded Iraq. Osama bin Laden had claimed that he was acting in revenge for what he saw as injustices against Muslims. But after 9/11, attacks against Muslims increased sharply. A new wave of xenophobia spread across many communities, targeting Muslims, South Asians, and anyone who was wrongly associated with the attacks. In 2001, hate crimes against Muslims rose dramatically. But Muslims were not the only targets. Many Sikhs were also attacked because some people could not distinguish between Sikh turbans and beards, and the appearance of the men they associated with terrorism. One of the earliest victims of this backlash was Balbir Singh Sodhi. On September 15, 2001, just days after the attacks, he had donated money to support the victims of 9/11. Later that day, while planting flowers outside his gas station in Arizona, he was shot and killed. His killer, Frank Roque, was arrested and later sentenced to life in prison. After that, fear spread through many Sikh communities. Some men cut their beards or stopped wearing turbans because they feared becoming targets themselves. But the violence did not stop there. Hate crimes and harassment against Muslims, Sikhs, and South Asians continued to rise. At the same time, fear grew across America. Many people were detained without clear evidence. Some were imprisoned, some were tortured. On a larger scale, serious human rights abuses began to emerge, and what made it even more disturbing was that much of the American public supported these actions. Many people believed that mass surveillance, harsh interrogations, and even the detention of innocent people were justified if it meant fighting terrorism. Critics argued that America's war on terror gradually became associated with torture, detention without trial, and the erosion of civil liberties. And for many around the world, these actions created new anger, new resentment, and in some cases, new recruits for extremist groups. That is perhaps the simplest lesson in this entire story. Extremism often creates more extremism. As the saying goes, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. Osama bin Laden said he was taking revenge for innocent people killed by America. Then, the United States said it was taking revenge for the innocent people killed on September 11th. Wars followed, more innocent people died, and for some of the families left behind, that pain turned into anger. For some, anger turned into revenge, and so the cycle continued. One attack leads to another. One act of revenge creates the next. It becomes an endless downward spiral. One extremist is killed, and another emerges. Today, Osama bin Laden is gone, but groups like Islamic State rose afterward. There is another lesson here as well. Never allow fear to become a reason for surrendering your freedoms. After 9/11, the United States expanded surveillance through measures like the USA Patriot Act. Fear can make people accept things they would normally reject. And when fear becomes stronger than reason, reality becomes harder to see. I hope you found this story informative. If you found this video valuable, please like the video and subscribe to the channel.